Thank you, Secretary Becerra. I want to start with your attention here on this jar. Do you see this? Do you know what this is?
Looks like candies or snacks.
Unfortunately, the reality is much more grim. These are wristbands that the cartels force people to wear when they cross the border. And if you're not wearing one and you cross the border, the cartels will take a limb or an appendage. This is what these people are forced to wear, and it dictates what cartel they belong to, how much they have paid. And they are absolutely a part of the horrors of trafficking and smuggling that occurs at our southwest border. And I have to point this out because I want to tell the journey, because this has really been laid out in bits and pieces along the way by my colleagues, and we're here to talk about these kids. So if you could turn your attention to the screen real fast, I want to show a quick photo that I took. It was 11:46 at night. I myself took this photo. That little girl that you see was acting terrified, not of the agents, not of myself, but of the man holding her. The very next day at the Donna Processing Facility, we threatened, and I was there to witness this man with a DNA test. He confessed that he actually was not her father, that he had rented her. This is a process called recycling. Now, I know we're here to talk about what happens to these kids after this point, but this little girl was then turned over to HHS custody, your custody, and you've talked at length today about the vetting process, right? And so you now know that this little girl, not through a DNA test, she's not related to that man. She now is in your custody. You have your own case managers who are supposed to vet these processes. And we, of course, know this from the Florida grand jury. These case managers have very little training or no training in interviewing these individuals, particularly children and young children who have been traumatized. You can imagine that this man who you just saw on the screen, who, by the way, was a convicted sex offender with this child, you can imagine the trauma that that child had sustained. Your own case managers are not trained in examining, evaluating, or recognizing documents as authentic or fake. She came with no documents. They have no official training when it comes to trauma-informed interviewing skills, no official training when it comes to investigating the safety or legitimacy of addresses to which a UAC may be sent. Now, I don't know what happened to that little girl, but what I do know is that the sponsors that you claim to thoroughly vet, which I would love to get your definition of thorough, because you haven't been able to articulate that here today. It also would include the fact that these kids show up with numbers pinned to their clothes or Sharpied on their bodies to call. Agents have reported in official testimony that these kids have the numbers, the same phone number Sharpied on their arms time and time again. Now, we've heard, of course, of situations where the same sponsor is being called, and magically 20, 30, 40 kids end up with that sponsor. And again, I go back to your statement of we thoroughly vet. You've really emphasized that. Do you vet every member of the household? And does it include an FBI check? Does it include an Interpol check? I would hope that it would, considering that we've had 151 different nationalities cross the southwest border under the Biden administration.
What Cammack from Florida said was so moving and so terrifying. This isn't candy. And nothing that's going on at the border is happy, like rainbows and candy and butterflies. So the cartels, basically what she's saying here is the cartels own the border. They can put a wristband on you like a cow is branded to indicate ownership to get you across the border. And if you disobey or you don't pay or you don't do everything that you need to do, you get maimed. This is what's happening. And that's not even the worst part. Kat Cammack herself got a video/picture of this small child with a man. This is a little baby girl who was rented, sold, trafficked at the border. And if she was there long enough to see this, how often do you think this is happening? And liberals try to say, oh, our border is closed and there's no sex trafficking. It's some QAnon myth. No. Some of these children are taken across the border to be sex trafficked And then because our country is in such disarray, anyone can pick them up. These traffickers just give a name. Anyone can have these children. And then you have trafficking alive and well inside our borders, facilitated and authorized by our government, our liberal government. And I hope that history judges people like Alejandro Mayorkas very harshly, because we can't stand for this anymore. They just want to get votes. Why aren't they caring about the innocent men, women, and children who are being sold, killed, maimed, basically within the walls of our country?